In the deadly swamp, a man fearlessly groped his way, and in the next second, the Hydra finally emerged. The man swung his sword and killed it. In the Alps, the man battled against the savage and massive boar king, ultimately beating it to death with a club. The strongest enemy the man encountered was a lion that was impervious to weapons. Despite this, he still relied on his strong strength to tear open the lion's mouth and win. This man is the son of Zeus, the mighty Hercules. Born by the god King Zeus and a mortal woman, as a half-human, half-god, Hercules could easily crush poisonous snakes since he was a child. As he grew up, he was known for his righteousness and greatly loved by the people of Athens. His fame made the king fearful. So the king poisoned Hercules' liquor. Taking advantage of his unconscious state, 3 ferocious wolves were set loose in his room, and they killed his wife and children. When Hercules woke up, he found his hands stained with blood, believing that he had killed his own family. In the court, the king accused Hercules of murdering his family, and according to the law, he was to be banished from Athens. Overwhelmed with guilt, Hercules, seeing his bloodied hands, fell deep into self-reproach. From then on, Hercules was exiled from Athens and could only live as a mercenary. One day, a group of pirates captured his nephew, intending to harm him. In this critical moment, Hercules arrived wearing a lion's head mask to rescue them. The pirate leader sent his subordinates to fight him, but they were all defeated with a single move.
Atalanta! Autolycus? That's why we're here. Titius! Abgarus!
Facing the charging pirates, he easily dispatched them all and finally saved his kidnapped nephew. Afterwards, they went to a local tavern, where Hercules' reputation had already spread. The tavern owner and her daughter had long admired him, and their admiration grew even stronger upon meeting Hercules. While they were drinking, soldiers suddenly burst into the tavern. Among them was a woman, the princess of the local kingdom, seeking Hercules' help. It turned out that their country was in the midst of a civil war, with the enemy occupying their land and committing atrocities. If they could help defeat the enemy, the king promised to reward Hercules with an amount of gold equal to his own weight. The generous reward made him ponder for a moment before agreeing.
I can convince you to make our problems your own.
Where are we going?
In the palace, the old king welcomed Hercules' arrival but expressed doubts about the abilities of his companions. Atlanta from the team demonstrated his archery skills on the spot. The king applauded and stopped questioning further. During the meal, the king informed Hercules that their enemies were half-human, half-horse monsters. Due to continuous defeats, the king's army was now composed of farmers and merchants. Hercules had no choice but to train these farmer soldiers into true warriors. He told the soldiers that survival on the battlefield was more important than killing the enemy. The phalanx shield wall was the most effective tactic, so he had the soldiers form a shield wall and tested it with male warriors. They easily broke through, indicating that the army still needed more training. Just a few days into their training, Hercules was summoned to the palace by the king. It turned out that the king's informant had reported that the enemy had invaded the border once again. Despite Hercules' strong persuasion, the old king insisted on leading the troops into battle. They could only depart for the border the next day. As they were about to reach the border, Hercules suddenly ordered the troops to stop. Hercules got off the carriage and inspected the area, only to find 3 heads strung together in the mist. It turned out that the village here had already been massacred by the enemy, but they discovered something suspicious.
Hold! Some of these bodies are fresh.
There were fresh bodies lying on the ground.
Form a single square! Protect one chorus!
They had fallen into the enemy's ambush. Immediately, numerous well-ambushed green-skinned savages surrounded Hercules' troops. The savages in front challenged Hercules for a one-on-one fight. Facing the provocation, Hercules gladly accepted. He secretly broke an arrowhead and concealed it in his hand, dried it directly into the savage's skull.
Hercules! 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 Hercules!
Although it boosted morale, the savages noticed Hercules' cheating behavior. Enraged, they swarmed from all directions, completely surrounding their phalanx. Hercules and a few of his teammates charged at the forefront, continuously wielding their weapons to reap the enemies. The battle was chaotic, and despite Hercules and his team's valiant performance, The savages broke through the phalanx. Seeing the old king in danger, they brought a war chariot with 2 sharp blades and massacred the savages around the phalanx. Hercules fought on the chariot, finally driving back the horde of savages. Despite the victory, Hercules' army suffered heavy losses. The enemy half-human, half-horse creatures watched the battle from the mountaintop and disappeared into the smoke. Hercules was extremely dissatisfied with the brutal battle and found the king to reprimand him for deploying poorly trained soldiers. Finally, the king realized his mistake and had to train the soldiers properly first. At night, Hercules entered his dream and was awakened by a nightmare of killing his wife and children. Unable to sleep, he went out for a walk and accidentally stumbled upon a pile of corpses. In a daze, he thought he saw his wife and children's bodies being devoured by a 3-headed hellhound. Enraged, Hercules shouted in anger, only to realize when he opened his eyes that he had been hallucinating. In the following days, he trained the soldiers with all his might, and the other teammates took on the role of coaches as well. They improved the soldiers' combat capabilities from all aspects, and the soldiers had officially become competent warriors. Thus, Hercules led the army and marched towards the border. Finally, they encountered the legendary centaurs, who turned out to be disguising themselves as centaurs to scare away the enemy. The battle horn sounded, and tens of thousands of centaurs charged forward. They were strong and numerous, but Hercules remained calm and immediately ordered the formation to be deployed. When the enemy approached, archers hidden in the small woods suddenly rushed out, catching the enemy off guard. Soon, most of the enemy's cavalry was eliminated, and then a large number of infantry swarmed in. Hercules arranged a large number of archers within the phalanx to deplete the enemy's numbers. Coordinating with the shield formation, they slowly moved forward. Hercules and his team bravely resisted on the front line, fending off most of the attacks. The enemy leader, Zeus, ordered the archers to attack them with fire arrows, and a dense barrage of arrows rained down instantly. However, Hercules and his team successfully blocked all the arrows with their shields. Amphiaraos spread his arms to face the arrow storm but miraculously remained unharmed. This astonished Zeus.
Maybe not.
Under Hercules' leadership, the soldiers continued to advance, unstoppable in their momentum, reaping heads of the enemy. The enemy suffered heavy casualties and could only retreat. The enemy leader was unwilling to accept defeat and charged on a fast horse with a raised sword, but he underestimated Hercules' strength and was knocked down along with his horse. Back in the palace, the enemy leader was kicked down and humiliated. Unable to bear it, Hercules intervened to stop such behavior. Instead of being grateful, the enemy leader claimed that Hercules had helped the wrong person. Hercules felt puzzled, unable to understand why the enemy would say such things. During the victory celebration, Hercules noticed something suspicious. There seemed to be a familiar connection between the princess and the enemy leader. He confronted the princess and discovered that the real aggressor was the king himself. Using the princess's son as leverage, the king had coerced her into deceiving Hercules. Enraged by the truth, Hercules publicly accused the king of being the invader. The king, relying on his supporters, showed no fear. Hercules had no choice but to leave the palace, taking the gold with him. Witnessing the despair in the eyes of nearby refugees, Hercules felt a deep sense of guilt. To ensure a better life for the refugees, he decided to fight his way back into the palace and overthrow the tyrannical king. As soon as he entered the palace, he found himself surrounded by soldiers. It was clear that they had fallen into the king's trap. In order to protect his comrades, Hercules reluctantly laid down his weapons. In the dungeon, Hercules gradually regained consciousness, only to be confronted by a ferocious 3-headed hellhound. Thinking it was another hallucination, Hercules soon realized that these were actually 3 trained and ferocious wolves. At that moment, the king of Athens, whom Hercules had once served, appeared. It turned out that the king had formed an alliance with the local king, planning to rule over the entire Greek empire together. After learning of the Athenian king's ambitions, Hercules remembers the wounds on his wife and child and understands that they were caused by the wolf. He confronted the king of Athens, who confessed to ordering the dire wolf to kill his wife and child. Unable to believe what he heard, Hercules realized that the king had killed his own family simply because Hercules had more prestige than him.
Killing you would have turned Athens against me.
I had to ruin your name.
All of you, starting with my faithless daughter.
Hercules broke free of his chains, leaped, and rescued the princess. The king ordered the wolves to be released and the dungeon door locked. 3 wolves attacked Hercules at the same time, but the powerful Hercules, in a rage, grabbed one and slammed it against the wall. He tore open the mouth of another wolf with his bare hands, leaving only one wolf biting his leg. Hercules pulled out a hidden weapon and pierced the skull of the remaining wolf. After killing all the wolves, they escaped from the dungeon. Hercules confronted the king of Athens, who pleaded for mercy in panic. Seeing through the ingratitude of this man, Hercules grabbed him by the neck and threw him onto the throne behind him. Drawing his sword, Hercules ended the king's life, avenging his wife and children. As they tried to escape from the palace, the king had already led the soldiers to surround the exits. However, what he didn't expect was that the king actually used his grandson as a hostage to negotiate with Hercules. Hercules looked at the king's army and instantly thought of a way to deal with it. He realized that the soldiers were trained by himself, so he began to persuade everyone not to assist the tyrants as he had done in the past.
Soldiers of Thrace, you followed me in battle. Follow me now.
Don't be fooled! Hercules is mortal, not a god. Anyone who sides with him will die!
Shortly after, the king started a countdown, urging Hercules and the others to surrender voluntarily. At this moment, the soldier who was holding the princess's son hostage was shot by an arrow. In an attempt to rescue the child, both sides began to charge into battle.
Get the boy!
During the rescue, Tydeus was hit by several arrows and ultimately fell to the ground. Under the king's orders, the soldiers relentlessly launched attacks against everyone. In order to stop the soldiers, the 2 men worked together to push over the brazier. However, the king did not abandon his attack, which ultimately resulted in the soldiers perishing in the flames. Soon, the king recalled the shield formation designed by Hercules. Using this formation, the king approached the people on the stairs. At that moment, the king did not realize that this action would hasten his own demise. Hercules was extremely angry when he saw the dead Tydeus. In this life or death moment, Hercules had a bold idea. He looked at the towering statue in front of him, bent down, and exerted all his strength to shake the statue. With a loud crash, the 100-meter-tall statue collapsed, and the soldiers who were chasing them turned and fled. The stubborn king tried to persuade the soldiers to return to the fight but was struck by the falling head of the statue and fell into the abyss. Hercules reappeared before the people's eyes, and by now, the soldiers had no will to fight anymore. They realized Hercules' divine power and dropped their weapons, kneeling down to worship him.